Welcome to episode 11 of the Rising Phoenix podcast. I am your host, Adam Blake, and will be joined by my co-host, Chase Strasser, shortly. In today's episode, we will be joined by Ben Zipay of the Elon men's tennis team. Ben is currently an Elon senior that just wrapped up his final tennis season, going 16-8 as a team and making it to the CAA finals. It was a pleasure to sit down with Ben and hear more about his time in Elon and what he is doing in his post-Elon career. I hope you enjoy it too. Welcome to episode 11 of the Rising Phoenix podcast. I am your host, Adam Blake, joined by my wonderful co-host, Chase Strasser, for one last time this semester.
And today we are joined by Ben Zipay of the Elon men's tennis team. Ben, thanks for coming on the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. Just a tennis player, watch tennis player now, finished up my last season, and excited to move on to the next steps.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how you made it to Elon.
Yeah, well, I'm from Florida originally, the Sarasota area, and I hadn't actually looked anywhere north of Florida to go to school until Elon caught my eye. An academic advisor told me about the school, and when I started researching it, it just seemed like the best fit for me. I got in contact with the coaches and players, went up for a visit, loved the campus, loved everything about it, and it really kind of blew all the Florida schools I was looking at out of the water. So made the choice to come here easy, and then since I've been here, I had no reason to want to leave.
Was the transition from Florida to North Carolina a difficult one?
No, it was great. Florida's hot, and I've lived my whole life there, so going somewhere where I could experience 4 seasons instead of summer and less hot summer was really fun, but also just going to a place that I used to visit, Asheville, as well. So going back to a familiar place where it's not too extreme with weather was just a great fit.
I feel like we get like 10 seasons here.
Yeah.
It was raining in like 40s last week, and now it's sunny.
Yesterday it was 100 degrees and humid. And
yeah, it felt like the swamp.
Yeah, you guys get rain for days here in Florida. It's just a thunderstorm quick and out.
Yeah, it's the evening thunderstorm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So starting from the beginning, what got you into tennis? Was it your parents, other people outside your family, and kind of what was that like playing, tennis as a kid? Because, not a lot of people play tennis as a kid. It's more baseball, softball.
No,
soccer. For
me, it was strictly family. So my grandma had originally played professional baseball, which is interesting. She played for the All-American Women's League. And then she transitioned to tennis. Her husband and her bought a small tennis club in Englewood, Florida. And then when I was born, my dad and my grandma had been running the club, and they've run it since. And so I was always this little baby just running around the tennis courts. And eventually I think it had to happen. I picked up a racket and started playing. And when I did, I just fell in love with it. And since then, it was a father-son dynamic for coaching. So I never really had to reach out from the family for tennis. And I did play baseball at the same time, kind of because of my grandma. And then when I came to the age I had to choose which one to focus on, I went with tennis. And since then, it was the same dynamic. I mean, I never had a coach besides my dad and was always just playing.
At what age did you make that decision to go and focus on your tennis?
I was 8, so I was still playing Little League. And then around when I was 8, the 10 and unders were still a thing. They actually got rid of that right after my age group. But I kind of had to make a decision because tennis and baseball was difficult because my swings were kind of intersecting, and it was holding me back a bit. And so I wanted to be ready for USTA tennis tournaments instead of baseball, and I like tennis more because I got to hit more. So that's when I made the transition.
So during your career as a young tennis player, you held 4th ranked UTSA in the state of Florida, and then 78th ranked nationally before coming into college. What was that like at playing, arguably one of the highest levels of amateur tennis before coming into college in that experience?
It was really fun. I mean, the friends I made and connections I made were amazing, and the group I was always playing with at these tournaments were really, really talented. And I'm not going to list everyone's name now, but I mean, I could look at some of the top programs who are still in the NCAA tournament right now and point out all these guys who I was sharing hotel rooms with and going to tournaments for, playing doubles with them. And we always knew that this group was going to be like a D1 level. And so it was great just for competition, but also broadening my horizons from where I lived and getting to meet a bunch of different people from around the country. And I always tell my friends now because he's famous and he's doing well, but I do have a win over Ben Shelton, and he was in that friend group, so that's something I can always hold on to from those days.
Parade that around
Oh yeah. No, I love that one.
Talking about your transition from Florida to North Carolina, now you're at Elon, now you're transitioning to the D1 game. What was that like through your first couple of years and just getting acclimated to higher speed of play?
It was tough because juniors was, like I said, a really talented group, but everyone kind of had their own motivations, and junior tournaments are different because if you're having a bad weekend, you can sum it up to that, and you're not going to give that extra effort because it's all individual. And transitioning to college where tennis and normally individual sport becomes a team sport, which outside of high school you don't get much of, it's the same level. These guys are coming from all over the world now instead of just the country, and they're playing with so much behind every match that it's just a physical beast of a game. It becomes less of who's more talented, who's the better player today, and just more of a mental battle as well. And that's where I think as a freshman coming into college tennis, a lot of people need time to develop because it's just so physically and mentally draining that you're not expecting, because every guy's out there trying to maintain their spot and position, but also their scholarship, because that stuff can be taken away, and no one's going to give you an inch when you're playing college tennis.
With that weight on the back of your shoulders, how did you kind of to manage that? Because it's equally a physical game and also a very large mental game. So how did you kind of play along with that and help those battles out?
It was definitely tough for me because I'm more of a quiet, reserved player. I never really got in people's faces, and I realized coming to college that guys doing that to me were going to always have the edge. So I kind of had to grow that tenacity and get a little bit more feisty on the court. And that took a good 2 years for me to really develop. And I still had success my first 2 years, but it wasn't until my junior year I actually really solidified myself as like a consistent starter. And every time I walked in the court, I felt like no one was going to break me down. But it was tough, and I had to do a lot of talking with my coaches, my teammates, just trying to figure out from the more experienced guys like how they found it, because it was something that was not in my nature, and I had to find it to succeed.
You talk about that junior season. You took home All-CAA third team, along with being the most improved player. What about that season? You kind of mentioned it, but what about that season? Did you come in thinking this is the year that you take off? And to get to the end of the season, to receive those awards, how did you feel knowing the journey you had been on?
Yeah, well, before the season, I went home that summer. I played a lot of tournaments, and I had some really good success I needed. I completely changed my backhand stroke after my sophomore year because that was something holding me back as well. And so I went home that summer basically learning a new stroke like any new player to tennis would. And luckily I'd had some experience with it, but it was a big change. So getting some big wins was really important. And then I came in that year, was having a good fall, and then I actually got injured. So I was out for 4 months between the end of fall and the beginning of season. So I missed our first, I want to say 2 months of match play that season as well. Hadn't stepped on the court, hadn't practiced. My foot, I had a size sesamoid injury in my foot, and so I was really struggling putting weight on it. And I finally got my boot off. I went back on the court. Within a week, I was playing our first match, just doubles. And then from that point on, I think just like the built up kind of anger of not being able to play, also how much I was putting into my game before the injury, everything kind of just came together, and I played just with a purpose that whole year. I think that's what allowed me to do it. And it was easy to maintain as well, just because I went out in the court just with this cocky attitude I never had before.
And bring it back to freshman year, your first season with Elon, you got your first win against NCA&T. What was that like, and how much of a confidence boost was it? Like finally a reassurance of, okay, I can actually play D1 tennis.
That was a funny match because the guy actually got withdrawn after the first set. He hooked me 3 times, I think, and the ref caught it. And when you get penalties like that in tennis, each one increases your penalty. And so he ended up getting forfeited from the match. So it wasn't, I'd say, the most meaningful match for my freshman year. The one after that against Longwood was, because that was a really hard-fought third set match. But that first one against A&T, I was definitely, I'll say I was a better player. But even that first set, I was still pretty shaky just being out there for the first time and going through the ropes.
So then what was it like for that second, true win?
That one was great.
Where you're taking a guy to 3 sets.
That was a great one because I had the lead quick. He changed things around completely, got all the momentum, and then I was the last court on. The guys were all there supporting me. And then at the end, it was a tiebreaker, pretty close in the tiebreak, and I hit a kind of like a banana shot, passing shot around the side of the net that just caught a sliver of the line, and that was a really exciting feeling. So that one meant a lot to me.
You mentioned how supportive your teammates were. I feel like every time I see a video of you guys or down at the JPTC, you guys are always hyping each other up. Just the emotion with you guys is always there. What is that dynamic like with your teammates and how much you guys support each other? Because, yes, there's some team elements to it. You guys are a team, but it's also very, very pressure-oriented on yourself.
Yeah, I mean, this team, especially this year, is just super close. All 4 years I've been here, and the reason I end up coming to Elon is because I realized how good the chemistry was off the court. And it's not like we practice and then do our own thing. Like, we practice, we get dinner together, we recover together, and we just spend a lot of time around each other. So it's kind of like, brothers that, you just meet from this common interest. And having each other there and practice and supporting in the matches has been huge for my 4 years. And we've always had guys on the team who are experienced, whether it's transfers or guys who are older, who brought different things to the table. I'm the only American on this year's team as well, so we have a ton of different backgrounds and experiences to learn from, which I think brings us together even more. But, I mean, we're just super close, and everyone wants to see each other succeed, which is special. We're not battling each other. Like, I feel like some teams may do that where they fight for spots, but we're just trying to do our best, and we know that the way coach does things too, like the better players are going to be playing. So you just want to push each other the best you can, and then at the end of the year, we all have the same goal of winning a ring. So whoever's playing and in that position, we're cool with it because we know that the right decision will be made for who's playing, and we know that we're going to be pushing each other even if we're not the ones playing.
Juan is your doubles partner for the season. How much fun are y'all having out on the court, and what's that dynamic like between you two?
We have a lot of fun. We're both pretty talented players, very different styles, though. I love the net. He's more of a baseliner guy. And so that was different because I'm usually playing with guys who also attack the net with me. And so it was interesting because in fall when we played together, we actually just started doing really well. And I realized that maybe that style of a doubles partner was great to have. And when we started winning, I mean, we were just having a ton of fun. And when we're having fun, we play our best. So we got that one win over UNC this year. And those guys are a really good team. I think they were ranked at the time. And we just took it to them, made no unforced errors, played amazing. We're just loving the fight, the game. We definitely had some matches this year where we didn't play our best. And that was kind of our downfall, is just our consistency throughout the season, even though we did have a successful season. But it was really fun playing with him. I'll miss that.
Looking at tennis in the upcoming years, it will be a transition period as head coach Michael Leonard steps down and will retire after this season. What has he meant to the program and for you especially?
I've told Coach this so many times this year, now that he's leaving as well, and I would have said it even if he was saying, but he's the one who got me here, and I'm forever going to be grateful for that because this was the best 4 years of my life. And the impact he's made on me, but also other players, was really highlighted this year when everyone was just reaching out to him. And we had this celebration after the senior day match where we all, his daughters actually put together a video of all alumni who wanted to say something to him. And it was like a 35-minute long video of just guys thanking him for everything he's done to them, people of all different years, all different ages. And it really just showed you the impact, the lasting impact he had on all these guys. But yeah, for myself especially, I mean, just how close I am with these teammates I've made. They're going to be people I reach out to all throughout life, and none of that would have been possible without him. And he also took my game to a level that I didn't think I could get to. And I think that's something special too, because the best coaches know how to get the best out of their players, and he definitely got the best out of me. And I wish I didn't have those injuries because I feel like I could have gone even farther. But I'm very content now with everything being done at where things left off.
You guys had a pretty successful senior season for yourself, and you guys made it into the tournament, sadly lost. But what was that season like? the ups and downs, and then, being it, Leonard's final season. What was that kind of like to yourself? It's also your final season, and to the team as a whole.
This was a really interesting season. We dealt with so much adversity this year, from knowing Coach wasn't going to be here because he had to tell us that mid-season. Dan had some family stuff he had to go back home for, and Dan was everyone knows Dan Martin. He racked up every award he could get, and so losing him was something that we definitely weren't sure how it was going to affect the team, but I feel like all the adversity we had brought us together, and we ended up having a great win on the road against William & Mary, which I don't remember the exact stats on it, but I think Coach had said, we haven't beaten them there in a really, really long time. And so that was a special win, especially knowing we could do it with Dan out. And we didn't know at the time if he was going to come back. We also went to Liberty, pushed them really close, had chances to win. And just some other matches throughout the season, some really good wins, really tough losses. But, yeah, it was tough, I think, at the end of the year as well. We finally did have Dan back, and that was amazing to go out with him for one last ride. And we did lose in the finals, like you mentioned. We lost to Wilmington again for the third year in a row. And I feel like this year for me, I don't know if it's a bad thing to say it, I was more at peace with it, because if a team can beat us 3 times in that situation, I think they deserve it. We have a phenomenal team, and I do think we can beat that team and have the potential to, but we also, that first night, we were there till almost 11:30 at night, finishing our first round match, went super long, had to stay back late the next day for our final match, and then we had to wake up at 7 a.m. the next morning for the finals because of rain. And so we dealt with every ounce of adversity you could deal with, and we still left it out there and had chances to put ourselves, as champions. So it's tough losing, but it's also a really strong team we played against, and I don't think there's any shame in consistently being that strong in conference, and knowing that we left everything out there and do have the capabilities to move it farther, even with coaching changes and team changes coming. I think that this program is set up really nicely to continue its success, hopefully go over that hump and win it.
You mentioned it a little bit, or we touched on it. Can we just talk about the magic of the JPTC? Because it just feels like everybody has a sweet spot for that place. And so, you spend more time than anybody there. What has that place meant to you over the last 4 years, and what's your favorite memory from the JPTC?
All right, favorite memory has to be senior day. That was just super special because all my friends came out, and when they were there, I didn't realize how many friends I had who wanted to support me. And it was just a great feeling just seeing all these people I've met over 4 years, made connections with, supporting us for one last match. And I got the win on court 6, which was special to me. Got to play at one doubles in front of a big crowd. And that was definitely the highlight of my 4 years, even though there have been other great moments. But the JPTC is just a great facility. I've seen a lot of different facilities in 4 years since I've traveled around, and even some of the big schools I don't think come close, because we have it's in the middle of campus, so there's always people coming out. There's just a great ambiance around it, with under the Oaks, the courts are nice. I think the stands are nice. There's just great places for people to watch. And another really fun moment was when we hosted conference my sophomore year. I think it was 2022. It was just flooded with people. There was no place to sit. Everyone was standing. You couldn't even see the ground because it was so busy. And the investment that people had in tennis, which isn't a sport you really think of as people coming to watch like that and get rowdy for, was amazing. And I don't think that would have been possible without the way the tennis center set up here. We all agreed after that in the locker room that was probably the peak of our tennis careers, especially for the guys leaving. They were like, I don't think I'm ever going to have that many people watch me, but the energy was just infectious. We had alumni there screaming for us the whole time, losing their voices, people who we'd never seen before watching tennis. You couldn't even pick out faces in the crowd because it was so big, and we ended up losing that one. It was another heartbreaker against UNCW in the finals, but it was just an electric atmosphere. And we did win the semifinals with the same crowd. So that was, I guess you could say that was the highlight of the weekend, when we won that one and everyone got to rush the court with us.
Moving into some of the other things you've gotten involved here on Elon's campus, over the past year you've had the opportunity to work with Elon Athletics as a marketing and ticketing intern. What has that experience been like, and what has it meant for you looking towards your career post-tennis, post-Elon?
It's meant everything. I always tell my bosses now I wish I did it sooner, and I'm just happy that I did it now. I can't regret not getting involved more in athletics because, I wouldn't have fallen into that position had I done it. But working with marketing, and I work with ticketing as well, has been amazing because I get to experience all these other sports and kind of the inner workings of how they put their games together and run the games, which is not only just great for experience in the field, which is where I do want to work. I love working game days for sports. Doesn't even matter the sport. I just love being around it. And getting to engage the student body more with sports, which is something that means a lot to me because, like I said, my core memories are when the fans are there and when people are there watching. And I think that relationship's really important for athletics, even though Elon's not the biggest athletic school all the time. And sometimes students have other priorities, like finding a way to get them to show up and actually really enjoy their time just means everything. And I'll use the example of the Elon Wake baseball game. We had over 1,000 people there, and it was a rowdy atmosphere. Everyone loved it. That type of stuff just makes me happy, and knowing that I play a part in it is really fun. And then for post-Elon, I'm doing a grad assistant with marketing at Emory University, doing a master's program there as well. And I think one thing that helped me land that was this experience and being able to connect with the guys who are hiring me, and just telling them, like, this is my passion, and something I want to pursue.
Well, we had the Wake game, and we also had the basketball Jersey game,
Yep.
which was awesome.
And the
Against
other Wake
Campbell.
game where we beat him again.
Yep.
That's true.
Yep.
I'm also hearing rumors that tailgates will be a standard next year for the football game, so very excited about that.
We're trying. That was one thing especially me, because I'm in the SAC committee as well. We push the tailgates a lot, and a lot of it's behind the scenes, but administration wasn't too sure if they wanted to do it. It finally got done. It was successful.
It looked like it worked.
It worked. It got the people there. Got to figure out ways to manage the amount of people because I don't think we were really ready for that turnout. But that's a great problem to have, I think. And I really, really, really hope that tailgates stay for next year and move into the football season because I think that would completely shift the atmosphere.
And going into this grad assistant position at Emory next year, kind of what you're doing, more than just marketing, and what's your kind of tennis going to look like at the next career?
So tennis, I love tennis, and I'm still going to play, but it's definitely going to be less competitive, more of just a pastime now and a way to stay fit because I do think it is great for those things, and it's just a great skill to keep going. So in my free time, I'll figure out when I can do that. But for my job, so my official title is the Events and Marketing Grad Assistant. I'll be working with the tennis teams at Emory, which is a huge plus. I know how to, I know how to connect with those guys, and it's a women's team as well, so I'll help get people there. Also doing women's soccer and then swim and dive. So those are the three sports I'll be working with primarily. And then I'll also be required to go to the game days for other sports like basketball and football that always need help. So I feel like the experience here is pretty similar. Obviously, I'll be taking on a bigger role in marketing and being more active because that's my job now rather than an internship. But I'm excited for it because like I said, I just love taking on the projects of figuring out what we can do at some place to improve the culture surrounding sports. And every place is unique, every place is different, and every place has a potential solution to increase that. So you just got to figure out what it is.
And this time you'll be moving to Atlanta. So in between Elon and Florida, have you been to Atlanta? What are your thoughts?
I've driven through Atlanta on my way to Elon, but that was definitely a big reason I chose this position as well because I wanted to stay close to home but also close to Elon because I'd love to come back here when I have time just to see the guys on the team, support them, also just enjoy the atmosphere at Elon. But it's also 8 hours from home, which is a pretty doable drive for me. I don't mind that. And I feel like it's a good spot in the middle. I've also never lived in the city, so that will be interesting. It is for 2 years, so if I really don't like it, I won't have to do it again, but I think it's a good opportunity to experience that while I have something lined up and I'm not just in the city just roaming around, not really sure what I'm doing. But I've heard bad things about Atlanta traffic, so hopefully I don't have to deal with that too much.
I feel like that's any city, though.
Yeah. But we'll see what shuttles are available.
Sometimes Elon traffic gets bad on the main road.
Yeah,
South Williamson, it gets messy out there.
Especially with all the work they're doing on the roads now.
I know.
Picked a bad time for that.
So bringing it back to Elon, you just recently presented your research at Surf Day. You were advised by a past guest on the podcast, Dr. Walker.
Dr. Walker.
So I'm going to give you this time and just kind of tell us about your research about it. And, we also love good stories about Dr. Walker as well, if you want to throw those in there.
Dr. Walker's a great character. If he's listening to this, he'll probably be laughing. But he definitely influenced me to do the surf presentation because I had him for my J-term class, the athletic administration course. And my research was on the facilities arms race in college athletics and how its integrity affects college as a whole. And he told me that he loved my presentation and was like, you should present this for surf. So I did. He helped me make it into a poster. I did some more research on ACC schools and what they do in the realm of facilities to get recruits to come. And I really enjoyed doing the research. It was pretty amazing what I found. I mean, some of these places like Clemson's, just the amount of money they spend on facilities for every sport is absurd. And the amenities they offer, they've got bowling alleys, arcades, mini golf, just for the football programs that these guys probably never use. But, it's what I found is it's all a game. They're just trying to get the best recruits there. And then it doesn't matter even if they use them because they just want to get them in the door and get them committed to Clemson and whatever universities do for that. But, yeah, Dr. Walker, going back to him, no, he just – honestly, I would say he's probably the most fun professor I've had at Elon, but I also think he just cares so much about the students. He's definitely made a lasting impression on me, and I don't know if I can say favorites, but he's definitely up there with my favorites.
I feel like he's someone, and we talked about this with him as well, he is at every sporting event for this school, and I know he's a big fan of tennis. I think he mentioned that he tried to join the tennis team.
He did. He told me that story. Yeah, he told me, tell your coach I said hi. And this is when I had just met the guy as well. And he was saying, yeah, I played football here, and then my last year I didn't want to play anymore. But I always loved tennis, and so I went up to Coach Leonard's office, and I was like, Coach, I want to play for you. And he said, my coach just looked at him and was like, you can't play tennis. You're a 300-pound man. And I just, it sounded so much like Coach, but also now knowing Dr. Walker, something he would say too, but fully believing that he was going to make it on that team. And I would have loved to have Coach take him on and see what happened. But
rumor is he worked up the ranks in Louisiana.
Did he?
Apparently in high school. The rumor is out there that he was
Coach
pretty darn
Coach
good
may
Louisiana
missed one on that one.
Missed
man.
an opportunity.
He did.
Yeah.
No, but he's just great, and yeah, he's always at the tennis courts watching. But I think that's one of the things that makes him such a good person is he's just authentic. He loves seeing other people succeed, which is special as well, and he just wants to do his part in supporting people.
Going back to your research, was there any facilities that stuck out to you, or was there any part of your research that really surprised you when you looked into it? Because I think we all know we see these crazy facilities that get millions of dollars pumped into them, but was there something that really stuck out to you about any facility?
So one facility that really stood out to me was Pittsburgh's Victory Heights Arena. And I didn't really think of this until I found it, but they're in a city, and so they don't have as much space as I mentioned Clemson earlier, who can just consistently be expanding. They're confined to a city, so what they did to try and differentiate from these other ACC schools who have other opportunities is creating this one place for 16 of their 19 sports to all play and participate and train. So like I said, it's called Victory Heights. It was I want to say $240 million project. Also was 240,000 square feet. I see you opening your eyes now. Are you looking at it?
I just found a picture. That looks insane.
This thing is ridiculous, but it makes sense.
It looks like a spaceship.
Yeah, it is. It's just this crazy facility, and it makes sense, though, because they know that they can't compete with the other schools and what they have. So what they're doing is finding a way to use this as a drawing card for athletes coming into their school. They're saying, hey, look, we've got everyone here. We have this state-of-the-art thing. Everyone uses it, but it's on your own time. You're going to have relationships with other student athletes because you're going to be around them, not just confined to your own team. And I think that's a really good idea for them, and something that, I mean, if I was a recruit going there, I'd probably want that, because being at Elon, at tennis courts that are away from other facilities, something I would definitely value is being around other teams and being able to socialize with people. And I think that's something that is often overlooked by recruits. And if they do a good job in their recruiting, like they could definitely market to people that aspect of it, because I really haven't seen any other facility like that and other schools who do it. So that one stood out by far. I was also surprised. I mean, I'm going to Atlanta now, but Georgia Tech has a phenomenal athletic facility program as well. They've put a lot of money into it. And it was just interesting, some of these schools who I never really looked at that much, just seeing how much money they put into it. But also, one other thing about the research that was interesting is how they fund it, because they all have the names of the donors, but the donors don't make all of the money to fund it. A lot of it's student fees, and a lot of it's hidden student fees where they don't really tell people what they're paying for. And that's kind of the other part of my project, was like the integrity of it. How ethical is it to be funding these massive facilities for athletics that students who aren't really going to reap the benefits of it are paying for? And how upfront do you have to be with them? How much do you have to tell them about it? Because even if it's in the fine print, most people aren't aware of it. And a lot of studies I found showed that. So I think it's pretty interesting how that landscape is. But it's also now shifting to NIL, because NIL is emerging, and they don't see the value of facilities when players are just trying to get paid themselves. So it's getting more individualized as well. So it's a really interesting topic that can be explored on a lot.
Well, I was going to ask, with college athletics, it feels like there's something new every day, but do you see a particular trend going forward? Or so are we going to see more arcades or less arcades in the future is what I'm getting at.
I think that facilities will still be updated and renovated, but I don't think that they're going to be trying to just one-up each other the way they had been, because in reality, if you're, let's say, I'm going to use football as the example because the most money spent on football, because that's a revenue-generating sport, and that's going to get the most boosters and alumni to put in more money. So let's say you have this top recruit in the country and they're coming to choose a school. Are they going to choose the one that has the arcade versus the one that's going to offer them an extra $1 million in NIL? Because they could build their own arcades with that money if they really wanted to. So the landscape is completely shifting, and it's still recent enough where you haven't really seen you can see trends, but I don't think you can make any just direct conclusions of where it's going to go, just because NIL is changing a lot. I know the NCAA is always trying to regulate and trying to figure out how they can control this, because it's loose right now and just running free and wild. So no one really knows like where NIL is going to go, but it's definitely interesting to see how that's the new bargaining chip. With transfers, and the transfer portal is getting crazy now because people are just leveraging their name, image, and likeness. So
and now you have schools unionizing, and
yeah,
really feels like this whole thing's working backwards, but it's a crazy landscape.
Yeah, I do think it was good that NIL became a thing, and I was kind of on the fence about it at first as well, but I don't know. It's just it's a different animal, because you have people at certain levels fighting just to land deals with local places at smaller schools, and I feel like they're really working for it. And some people just literally because of their name. I mean, you look at a Bronny James or something who didn't have, the craziest stats in his college career, but he was the highest earner in NIL because of his name. And so you look at it, and from that standpoint, like you can kind of wonder and make an argument of how it's fair to other players who might be more talented not getting it. But it's also, like I said, they're earning that profit now versus the schools for having them. So I do think it should go to the players. So it's just kind of a double-edged sword, but really interesting.
And on that topic, what was your kind of career like with that? Given that we're at a smaller school, did you have any NIL offers, opportunities, and or any teammates that kind of had any? And how did that kind of skew the team dynamic, if any?
We really didn't get too invested into it. I actually, this is kind of funny, but I had a couple TikTok videos that blew up, and then
I was going to ask about that.
You saw them?
Well, it came up because, before these podcasts, we're always Googling and doing the research.
Yeah.
And I was like, 40,000 followers.
Yeah.
We're getting a real social media star on.
Wouldn't say that. It was really weird how it happened. 2 videos within the span of a month I made that were like jump scare videos, and one was with a basketball. They blew up, and then I think Dunk was the first platform to reach out, and then in my DMs I had like Overtime and Sports Center, and it was the coolest month of my life just because I was getting DMs from these companies, and I was like, this is sick. Like, I want to do this. And then I realized, no, I don't really want to do this because the only reason I made videos in the first place was just because I thought they were funny. But as a result, I got a ton of followers, which I also wasn't expecting because usually that doesn't happen even with viral videos. And then the followers made brands reach out. And so on TikTok specifically, a lot of clothing brands reached out, and they were just sending me stuff to post on it and wear it. And I got some really nice pants and shirts as a result. But I also realized that I just didn't really want to do that because it just didn't feel authentic because I wasn't really it was something I was doing for fun rather than a job. And I was just like, you know what, this isn't the path I want to take. I was just making videos for fun. And so I kind of laid off it, and I didn't really post much, on TikTok after that. But it was fun while it lasted. And then for NIL specifically, I never really reached out to other brands or platforms. Elon's partnered with Open Doors, which is our NIL collective type thing, where they have a bunch of deals available. You can reach out and get connected and follow through on them for your money. And I do know some people like on the women's tennis team and other sports who have done it, but it's a bit of a grind, especially at Elon. And yeah, none of my teammates really wanted to do it just because we know that the returns aren't going to be that great anyways. We're tennis players, so we know our place. I have a question for you guys. So this is I do. I know.
This is the first. Wait, hold
Really?
up.
Hold up.
Oh, I gotta sit up.
Get ready for this.
I think you'll like this. So my capstone project, I'm working on an Elon NIL collective thing, and kind of going off that last answer, it reminded me. I feel like Elon could do a better job of having a database where we are connected with our local businesses, restaurants, partners, and they can see Elon student athletes and find partnerships. And to avoid, based on my research as well from the arms race, to avoid the amount of transfers after big seasons, I feel like that's a great way Elon can grow their sporting success, because a lot of times when guys have great seasons here, they want to leave because they have offers somewhere else. But I feel like if they have better ties to the community and NIL deals here, they're probably going to be more likely to stay. And so my question for you guys is, because Rising Phoenix this year has grown tremendously as a student-led initiative, and this collective idea I have would also be a student-led thing. And so I had talked with Jacob a bit about his mind on it. Yes, I did. Yeah, no, he's an interview in my capstone project as well for it. But I'm just curious if you guys think that's something that would work and that students would want to take the reins for. Because I know one of the reasons that Jacob said Rising Phoenix is so well done and popular is because you guys are just so passionate about it, and you can see the passion. And I feel like for this to succeed, it would also have to have just a lot of passion. So do you think that's something that, students would want to do or would be able to succeed at Elon?
Well, I think, one, students are always looking for the opportunities, and I think that with what we mentioned with the trends and the growing landscape, I think that's something that even if you get certain students that maybe have never gone to a sporting event, but you talk about that from a marketing standpoint, from a social media, just from a business standpoint, I think that's something that a lot of different types of people could get on. And I'm always going to be one for connecting with the community. I think sports is such a dynamic field and something where it holds, even at a place like Elon, a special power to connect individuals. So again, something where you're involving the businesses, and Elon's done some stuff with it, but connecting the businesses and the community with the athletes, and therefore getting the students involved in different ways, I think it just helps everybody out. It keeps Elon not only competitive in the sports realm, but also just in you're getting real experience in your early years of college, which isn't something you can get just anywhere.
You know, when I walk into Harris Teeter and see the football schedule or the baseball schedule, I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool. And just kind of leveraging that, because we're a tight-knit community here at Elon. You know, it's a school of, I think, a little over 7,000. And it's kind of its own little town, and sometimes there's the Elon bubble. And if athletes can have the ability to break outside of that, and, you know, be friends with the Jersey Mikes down the road, or, you know, Blue Ribbon Diner, that'll definitely help students to break out of the bubble. And then, you know, they're going to see, you know, Ben Zipay is sponsored by, you know, the Blue Ribbon Diner. Then, you know, I'm going to go eat there, and then I'm going to take my food and go to the JPTC to watch. So I think it's definitely a great idea, and making it student-led. You know, me and Chase here have seen the prosperity of a student-led initiative, and I think that just be, you know, another great resource and asset to the university and to the athletics department.
Yeah.
If there's one thing about Elon students, is they will get involved.
I know that what free time is.
I know that.
Nobody knows what free time is.
No.
I mean, every athlete we've had on is also, just like you, involved in a bunch of other things, and we always ask, like, how do you balance all of that? I mean, with research, with tennis, how the student-athlete balance, how has that come into play for you especially?
It's definitely been tough, just because you can't make your own schedule when you're a student athlete. You're reliant on your coaches and your tournaments, and especially tennis, which is a fall and spring sport. You just don't have that much free time. But it's not too bad, and especially this last year, I've had only one class because I finished a lot of courses early, so I had more time to focus on things that I enjoy doing, like the internship, and getting more involved in campus. But I think that's just a huge thing, and you guys really hit it on the head. But student involvement here, like, everyone loves to get involved, but also it just reflects so good on Elon as a whole, and it's so good. I mean, I realized when I was applying for jobs that people just love experience, and especially what you guys do with Rising Phoenix, like having experience doing something on your own that wasn't asked of you just goes such a long way for stuff. So I also feel like doing more stuff like this, where students can kind of lead the charge on something that has tangible success, is going to be just massive for not only growing Elon, for students, for sports, wherever, but also just a successful career afterwards. So I just think all of that really comes together.
So you're a tennis player, and before we wrap up here, we've got to ask about the growing phenomenon that is pickleball, because I've played the game. I'm not very good, and I'm not good at tennis either. Brother played for a little bit, but I inherited no talent when it comes to racket sports. What are your thoughts on pickleball, and on a little bit of a fun topic?
All right. So originally I was anti-pickleball, and then I went home and played it with some of my friends who were down from other colleges.
Do you think most tennis players were anti-pickleball?
Yes.
Oh.
But when you play it and you play against other guys who are good players, it's so fun, because especially me being a doubles player and loving the net, like anything that's fast, you know, where there's a little bit of risk of the ball coming quick at you, like I love that stuff. And so I just enjoy getting on the pickleball court. It is a lot easier. All right, I'll go ahead and say that, and any pickleball player who's played tennis will agree with that. But it's quick, it's fun, it's a great game, and I don't think there's any problems with it. The only thing I would ask of people is to separate pickleball from tennis, because the noise is horrible when you're playing tennis and listening to that. Very distracting, but it is in itself. I think pickleball is a good thing.
I love that that's the criticism. It's
No, truly though. I mean, you see them, all these clubs and places are putting pickleball courts right next to tennis, and you're trying to play tennis, you just hear like ping, 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 clack, 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 and then some old lady like screaming at Barbara, you know. But no, it's fun. And I just played a student pickleball tournament here with my friend on the golf team, Pedro, and he'd never played before, and it was really fun. We won. I won't flex it, but you know.
We'll add to the accolades.
Oh yeah,
it added to the list.
That's
So
a good
you
one.
look
I
at
got
LinkedIn. It's like
we got a little
mile
trophy
long.
of a dog that says top dog. So,
Oh, there
Oh,
you
I
go.
love that.
There you
You
go.
gotta put that on your desk.
It's on my desk right now.
Ben, thank you so much for joining me and Chase on the Rising Phoenix podcast. This is the last one of the semester, as it is wrapping up.
We will have summer episodes,
Yes,
though.
we will. More information to come later. But for our listeners, Ben, what's the best place they can reach you and follow along with the rest of your career?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this. It was fun talking to you guys and seeing this platform grow in Rising Phoenix. But my Instagram's just Ben Zipay. If anyone wants to follow, I mean, nothing special, but I post on there big things that are happening. And then I'm using LinkedIn a bit more now just because trying to expand that professional development. And that's also Ben Zipay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah. No, thanks again.
Thank you to Ben Zipay from the Elon men's tennis team for joining myself and Chase on this episode of the Rising Phoenix podcast. If you are an Elon athlete, coach, or alumni interested in being featured in a future episode of the Rising Phoenix podcast, contact Jacob Kissamore at jkissamore@elon.edu. That is JKISAMORE@elon.edu, or my wonderful co-host Chase Strasser at cstrasser@elon.edu. That is CSTRAWSER@elon.edu. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media channels. We are on X, formerly known as Twitter, at EU Rising Phoenix, and on Instagram at Elon Rising Phoenix. We are also now on TikTok at Elon Rising Phoenix. New articles, graphics, and other content can be found on any of these platforms. Finally, new episodes of the podcast will premiere every other Wednesday, so check back in every few weeks for a brand new episode with an exciting guest. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Rising Phoenix podcast.